Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are doing another budget deck tech, and this time I'm looking at River Song, and I'm calling this the backwards deck. I really like this one. I know I say that about all of them, but anyway. Okay, first up, River Song. She is 1 and Izzet, that's blue-red. Meet in reverse. You draw cards from the bottom of your library rather than the top. This is a huge ability, okay? Usually, putting something at the bottom of your library just takes it out of the game. It's like exile and then bottom of your library is the biggest hassle. Graveyard is preferable to the bottom of your library, so an effect that lets you draw from the bottom synergizes with all kinds of stuff. Anyway, and spoilers for her second ability, whenever an opponent scries, surveils, or searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on River Song, then River Song deals damage to that player equal to its power. So again, if they only do it once, she is going to get a +1/+1 counter, becoming a 3/3 and deal 3 damage to that player. In Commander, there's going to be a whole lot of scry effects, a whole lot of searching decks, a whole lot of... This is going to be just a pile of automatic damage throughout the game. We do have a few effects where you can force people to search their deck or to scry or things like that. So we can make use of that, but I think for the most part, I don't want to push that too hard. I feel like if you go really hard on that, in my first version of this deck, I had a lot of effects like that. I think if you keep doing it too much, you're going to end up making her a kill on sight commander, right? And you don't want that. You don't want her to just like, every time she hits the board, immediately gets knocked back to the command zone kind of thing. I think moderation is good with that ability anyway. She is 12 cents only. Crazy. This deck is $31. Originally I was trying to keep it under 30. I couldn't quite manage that without like taking a pretty significant dive in the quality of the deck. So I'm still going with the under 35. But anyway, design objective, take maximum advantage of drawing off the bottom. And that's really what I'm focusing on here, is that draw off the bottom. Because that is so good in so many ways. Again, trapping things at the bottom is usually like a downside, not an upside, like it is with her. Even scry effects, the way scry works is more than opposite, I think. Putting it to the bottom means you're going to draw it. Putting it to the top is like, basically taking it out of the game almost. But you can always keep scrying the top card. And we are going to have a lot of effects that do make use of the top card. So it's a little bit more convoluted. It's kind of like your extra card is the top card. And then, yeah, you don't really have taking it out of the game. Scry is usually put to the bottom, and the bottom card is like out of the game almost. And this isn't like no card is out of the game. It's just sorted differently, like prioritized almost. Anyway, I determined this using the TCG market value price, and they are not a sponsor. No. Part 1, River Song about the commander. So we're going to get more specific into the commander. Again, River Song. So her primary ability lets you draw off the bottom of your deck, which is huge. It really is. She can also do auto damage when an opponent scries, surveils, or searches their libraries. This will shut down some decks. It really will. I think people will underestimate how much like some decks rely on scry and search and surveil. If they got a deck where they're doing that a lot, they're just going to like drain themselves out pretty much and give your commander a huge boost. So yeah, it's kind of an automatic counter to a lot of strategies, I think, is the main thing to see about that. Some decks are kind of just going to be like, oh, yeah, I have this deck, so I'm out, almost, right? Anywho, I do like that, where it just kind of really almost shuts down some things right off the bat. Okay, high synergy cards. First of all, Dig Through Time. So with this it costs 8, but it has Delve, so you can exile cards to pay for every card you exile from your graveyard. It pays for 1. So you can, if you exile 6 from your graveyard, you pay 2. That's reasonable, first of all, but it lets you look at the top 7 cards of your library. Again, looking at the top when you're drawing from the bottom is amazing. You take 2 of them and then you order the remaining 5 and then put it to the bottom of your library. This is super useful, especially if you combine it with something where you can shuffle your deck, right? You know exactly what's coming, so you get the cards you want to get. As soon as you get that last card you really want from the 5, you shuffle it and you start drawing different things instead. You're setting yourself up for at least 1 turn, probably more, doing this. Being able to put the 5 in any order you want is such a huge ability. It's kind of like Scry 7, basically. Scry 7 draw 2. Crazy. Hoverstone Pilgrim. So this isn't really not even the best one or the best creature of this type, but we do have several creatures that let you take a card from your graveyard and put it on the bottom of your library. Again, usually kind of a downside. With this deck, a huge upside, right? Basically anything you can recur. You've got recursion for like everything in your deck has recursion as soon as one of these. And I think there's at least 5 of these in the deck. So yeah, if you can fairly easily keep at least 1 on the battlefield at all times to like get 1 card back out of your graveyard every turn and then return it to your hand, and then another one return it to your hand. Your graveyard kind of operates as like spell sorting at that point, rather than an actual graveyard where you're like things are stuck. You're just like deciding what you want from there. It functions completely differently. Anyway, this is a flat 5. I only really like this because it is a flyer with 2/5, right? A 2/5 flyer for 5 that allows you to do this. It does cost 2 to activate the ability, so that's high, but it's still worth it most of the time, I think. Krenko's Buzz Crusher. Okay, so it is 2 and 2 red for a flying trample 4/4. I do like flying and trample. Trample and evasion in general is a very good combination, but yeah. When it enters the battlefield, for each player, including yourself. So here's the downside. This does affect you. Destroy target 1 non-basic land that player controls. For each land destroyed this way, its controller may search the library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. Remember, so you're destroying their land and they get to search for a basic land and put it into the battlefield. Every time someone searches, your commander gets +1/+1 counter and then does damage. So yeah, the first person, if you haven't had any other scry or anything like that, if this is the first one, the first person is going to take 3 damage, the next person 4, the next person 5, and then if it keeps going, it just keeps going up, right? So if you use, I believe there's 3 cards with similar effects to this. So even if you have, I believe it's, what is it? Mere Attendant or something like that. I can't remember the name of the card now because I'm recording, of course. It's going to let them each scry. So if they each scry 1, then that triggers again, and then you're doing 6 damage, 7 damage, 8 damage on the scry. That's like 8 auto damage is crazy, right? That's a lot. Anyway. Eyes Everywhere. So this is another one that is kind of using her second ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Scry in this deck is just so good, first of all, but more importantly is the second thing. Exchange control of Eyes Everywhere with target non-land permanent, activate only as a sorcery. So you can give this to someone else and steal something they have. You can steal whatever you want from them. you are gonna like, basically, I would hopefully want to steal like a really good artifact or enchantment from someone else and give them this, and then every time they scry one, remember your commander gets +1/+1, they take auto damage. So you're ticking them down every turn with this. Also, eventually they're probably gonna like lose the game and be out because of life drain, right? Once this is in your graveyard, remember you're putting it back to the bottom of your deck, putting it back into your hand, and then using it again. So you're kind of just like doing this over and over. It's not cheap mana-wise, right? It does cost 6, 5 in a blue to activate the ability where you're stealing someone's other card, but you're getting that card value and you're getting the auto damage every turn, right? So that I think is actually very worth the 6, right? The reality chip. So you may look at the top card of your library at any time. Very, very useful. If you're like, should I scry? Should I shuffle? Should I? Being able to look at the top card of your library, very good. And as long as the reality chip is attached to creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. This is always good when usually the top of your library is effectively the bottom of your library. When it's usually something that you just don't have access to, it's much better, right? This is essentially giving you access to cards that would be almost out of the game unless you're able to scry them in. In most decks, this would be like drawing off the bottom of, or playing from the bottom of your deck, which is just not even a thing really. So, well, it probably is, but it's not easily done. But yeah, here, because your deck is essentially upside down, being able to play from the top is just like giving you access to a card you might not even have access to in the entire game. It is so much better in this deck. That's all I can say. I'm gonna rant on and on about that. Anyway, it is a 0/4. Finally, Time Stream Navigator. This is when it gets real crazy. Okay, so grants an extra turn and goes to the bottom of your deck. Again, she does have Ascend. So first of all, you need the City's Blessing, which means you need 10 permanents. Super easy to do in Commander, right? Even if it's turn 5, you probably have 5 lands. That's 5 permanents, right? You need 5 more for the City's Blessing. Any combination of artifacts, enchantments, and creatures to equal 10, and lands. Very hard not to do by accident at some point, I think. So anyway, for 2 and 2 blue, you can tap her, put her on the bottom of its owner's of her owner's library, means she gets drawn against next. Take an extra turn after this one. Activate only if you have the City's Blessing. Okay, so she's going to go to the bottom of the deck. Then you're going to draw her, play her again, and you need something with haste if you want to keep chaining this one after another. Otherwise, it's once every 2 turns you can activate this, right? She's going to be summoning sick, so we do have Swiftfoot Boots. If you've got those out, attach them, give her haste, and then boom. She's just going haste non-stop. I thought about adding more haste. There just isn't room for it in the deck. I really wish there was, but the last note, yeah, taking infinite turns or even repeated double turns is very Time Lord. I feel like it's a very Time Lord tactic, so I kind of like it for the flavor. Part 2, the plan. These are the deck objectives, really, okay? This is a weird one. I think always, first up, you're going to do your mana base, so we're calling this ramp-ish. It's not really ramp, it's Izzet, right? Izzet is not strong with it's not great at ramp, basically, right? And your Spellsling strat, that's the second thing you're going to be setting up, is your Spellslinger strat, and then your win cons, finally. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, yeah. I had a little brain fart there. Escape tunnel. So this is not great you can sacrifice it, basically like a what is it called? Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse, where you can bring in a basic land of whatever you want. So this is more about mana fixing, but it also doubles as you can sacrifice it to give make a creature with power 2 or less, I believe, unblockable. So it can be very useful. The Belligerent. Okay, this lets you play any card off the top of your deck, so that's very good, first of all. Secondly, it is a vehicle, crew 3. When you attack with it, it creates a treasure token and lets you play the top card of your deck. That treasure token is huge, right? You kind of do need 2 different mana to cast this in the first place, but anything where it's like blue, blue, red, red, that treasure token can be very, very useful. Mana Geyser. So here, yeah, if you use like a treasure token to help cast this, that'd be great. Anyway, so add red to your mana pool for each tapped land your opponents control. Again, you've got 3 opponents in Commander. For each tapped land they have, you make a mana. You make a red mana. That's a lot of mana, right? Even by mid-game, that's probably like 15 or more mana you're making. Sorcerer class. We're looking here at kind of like the level 2. Again, you need Izzet, blue-red for the first one, and then moving to level 2, you also need blue-red. And creatures you control have tap, add blue or red. Spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spells, or to gain a class level. So yeah, it lets you can use it to advance its class level. That you can only do as a sorcery, but you can now use your creatures as mana rocks for instants and sorceries. That's very big in this deck because we have a lot of instants and sorceries we can pump out. Finally, Mystics of the Magnus. Okay, I imagine this is what I always said before. I just realized I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Okay. So basically, he's going to reduce the cost of instants and sorceries. It's not ramping. Cost reduction is basically the same idea as ramp, right? But it's only for instants and sorceries, which there are a lot of in this deck. And remember, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery with mana value greater than the number of experience counters you have, get an experience counter. And then you get, based on the number of experience counters you have, you reduce that cost. Very easy to build up experience counters, especially with things that allow you to cast your opponent's stuff, and you can kind of keep stealing things from your opponent that will keep racking this number up. Even once you get up to like 3, other than dig through time and like X cost things, I think that's pretty much maxed out anyway, so yeah. 3 is a lot of cost reduction. Keep in mind, that's like 3 extra mana per spell. So much. Alright, Spellslinger auto damage. First up, Fiery Inscription. This does have the ring tempts you. The first one, I believe, grants evasion to a legendary creature, so that's nice. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. You've got things like Arcane Bombardment and Staff of Wonder, so that will be able to cast multiple things every turn, or even like River Song's Diary that will auto cast something at the beginning of every turn. You're just going to keep casting, and each time you do one of those casts, you're getting that auto damage in. 2 to each opponent. 6 damage every time you auto cast a spell. Crazy. Anyway, Pink Horror, once again auto damage when you cast the instant or sorcery spell. I like this because even if they kill this Pink Horror, it makes 2 tokens that will also each do 1, right? So it kind of like splits into 2 separate ones, smaller ones. Thermo Alchemist deals 1 and untap every time, right? You tap it to deal 1. Anytime you cast an instant or sorcery, untap, tap again. So yeah, Again, with that auto damage thing, this does become very useful because it does have, is not, most of them are not copying, they are casting, right? It does specify cast. So you are going to keep untapping him and doing that 1 extra damage. Even Fiery Inscription and Thermal Alchemist, those 2 are out. That's 3 damage to each opponent for each instant or sorcery being cast. You've got a lot that you don't even have to pay for that are going to just auto cast. The auto cast plus this is going to just set off like a crazy amount, like a chain reaction of just like devastation. Anyway, Keseg Flame Breather. I like these ones more. I'm actually going to show you the next one too. Firebrand Archer. These are essentially the same thing. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this is nice because it does not specify instant or sorcery, just non-creature spell, right? It deals 1 damage to each opponent, and she does the same. Yeah. So these will each, anytime you cast even an artifact, enchantment, anything like that, these will do 1 damage. Also instants and sorceries. So you're getting kind of like an even more flexible thing with a bit lower damage. But if you don't need to pile up a whole lot of these to be doing just like a ridiculous amount of auto damage every turn, right? Even one of these can probably trigger multiple times per turn. If Firing Inscription triggers even 4 times in a turn, which is very, very doable, you're going to be doing 8 damage to each opponent. That's 24 damage, right? No, yeah, it is. Okay, I did my math right for once. Anyway, Spell Slinger Synergy. I can't talk already. Okay. So this, every time you cast your second spell, each turn, draw a card. You've got a lot of effects that auto-cast a spell, like at the beginning of your turn and things like that. You can quite likely auto-cast 2 spells. Sometimes you're going to be auto-casting more than 1 spell, and this is going to trigger, and you're just going to draw a card without even doing anything. Just by starting your turn. If you've got Arcane Bombardment on River Tam's, or River Song's Diary, I'm thinking a whole different genre, or a different show. Anyway, you're going to like auto draw a card off of this right away, and all that extra damage and stuff. We talked about him already. Being able to cast multiple things, he's going to keep giving you experience counters that make that easier and easier to do. Stormkiln Artist. So whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token. Getting those treasure tokens basically rampant, right? Really, really big. Murmuring Mystic. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue bird. A flying creature token that you can just use to block with is so huge. A lot of times when people see you have a bunch of like blockers, flying blockers that are tokens, where you can just throw them away and you don't really care, they just say, I'm not even going to bother. They target someone else. I think this is so much better than just having blockers. Having blockers you don't care about is so much better. Combat just doesn't really mean anything to you. It's like, yeah, go ahead. Kill the stuff. I'm just gonna make more, right? Doesn't matter to me. So what they do is they attack someone else. Getting your opponents to fight each other more is better than them just like not attacking you is good. Fighting each other is much better. Finally, Wand of Wonder. This is what I was trying to remember before. I think I called it Staff of Wonder. I knew that sounded wrong. Wand of Wonder. Again, for 4, each opponent is going to exile cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery, and then you roll a d20, and yeah, 55% chance that you get 2 or more of the exiled spells you can cast for free. It does cost 4, but you're going to get more than 4 value a huge amount of the time, right? Also, you're taking away other people's stuff, so that's really huge. Win cons. Okay, win con number 1. We kind of talked about this. From the ashes, destroy all non-basic lands. For each land destroyed this way, its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card and put it into the battlefield. Then each player who searched his or her library that way shuffles it. So again, people are going to have all kinds of non-basic lands. You're blowing them all up, and then they're going to search a whole bunch of new lands. Every time they search, +1/+1 River Song, and they do damage. This is going to be just a huge pile of damage right away, and if you've got them lowered with the auto damage already in that game, and then especially if you've managed to use something to like boost River Tam up a bit. I did it again. River Song, not River Tam. Anyway, if you've been able to boost up her damage, even using things like your opponent's instants or sorceries to like boost her damage or give her counters or however it may work out, that auto damage is just gonna like be real crazy, right? If you give her some kind of like combat bonus that's supposed to be your opponent's, that gives even +2 damage, that can be, with this, that's going to be multiple 2 damage instances coming at your opponent. Pretty quickly it's going to get into a situation where you're knocking them out of the game. Arcane Bombardment, also if you cast this, you might be able to keep recasting it with Arcane Bombardment. Of course it won't work unless they have more lands, non-basic lands down, right? So we'll see. Once again, this does hit your own stuff as well. You don't take the damage though. You also don't put counters on her for searching your own deck, unfortunately. Win con number 2. I do love this one. I think I featured this in my last Izzet deck. So Nib Mizzet Heron. Basically, whenever you draw a card, you're going to do 1 damage to an opponent, and with Curiosity, when you do 1 damage to an opponent, you draw a card. Also, Tandem Lookout. Tandem Lookout is soul bonded to Nib Mizzet, then same thing. Just going to keep doing that damage over and over and over. Damage, draw a card, damage, draw a card. If you want to interrupt that loop, like if you're getting low on cards, but you don't want to keep drawing, you can just target something that is not an opponent, and boom, that shuts off the loop. Okay? So yeah, you don't have to draw yourself out is my point here. And WinCon question mark, I called this. You do have like Wand of Wonder, River Song's Diary. River Song's Diary is going to exile instants and sorceries that are cast from anyone's hand. And yeah, it will. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more cards exiled with River Song's Diary, choose one of them at random. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Right? So you're just going to cast something for free that your opponents have cast already. Super strong, but also we got Wand of Wonder and Arcane Bombardment. Excuse me. Wand of Wonder, for instance, unfortunately will not exile with River Song's Diary, but these are all effects that essentially your opponents are going to set you up for these things instead of like you actually having a plan, right? These could lead to win cons, but with these ones you got to think on your feet kind of thing, which is very important in this deck because you are going to have a lot of situations probably where there's potential win cons, but you have to recognize them as the tricky part, okay? Alright, one important thing. Any kind of damage boost or anything, put it on River Tam and cast from the ashes. That's one of the main things you can look out for. If you've got something that like doubles creature's power until end of turn or something like that, you can really just like make her very dangerous. Part 3. Combos and tactics, so getting the most value. Okay, Shifty Ramp. So thanks to Tim Ice from EDH on a Budget, which is a great budget channel you should check out. I'll try to remember to put a card up there. And yeah, he pointed out that Cleansing Wildfire, if you use it against an opponent, they have to search their deck so you can do damage, or you could use it on your own thing. Why would you do that? Ramp. We got Silver Bluff Bridge in our deck. This is an indestructible land. So if you cast Cleansing Wildfire on it, it's supposed to destroy it, but it's indestructible. So it doesn't destroy it, but this does not specify you have to destroy a land to replace it with another land. Most cards like this do. This does not. So you can just, if you cast Cleansing Wildfire on Silver Bluff Bridge, you just go into your deck, find a basic land, throw it into the battlefield tapped. And you don't have to destroy your own land. It is ramp. A 2-mana red ramp card, that's crazy. You do need Silver Bluff Bridge out to be able to do that, which is kind of a downside. But anyway, I think it's pretty awesome. Triggering her second ability, so each activation will make the following activation stronger. Remember, you're putting those +1/+1 counters on her first, and then doing damage based on her current damage. Every time you activate one of these, or you get an activation, it's going to be stronger than the last one. It's going to be more damage than the previous one. So if you are going to use that from the ashes, you should probably try to look for one of these first to set it up to be able to do more damage. Cleansing Wildfire, again, will only be a +1 if you use it against an opponent. And then Kranko's Buzz Crusher will be +3 and damage. Remember, 4, 5, 6 damage. And then Mirror Custodian allows each opponent to scry one, or it makes them, okay, they may scry one. They don't have to. Maybe you shouldn't have put that in the deck then. I just put that in. That was actually the last card I put in. I didn't read May. Still, I think some people will be like, scrying one will be worth it. So yeah. Especially if this is one of the first ones, they'll probably be like, 2 damage to scry one for free, sure. It probably will not happen if she's already got a bunch of +1 counters though. So yeah. I did not clock that it was a May scry one. Okay. Anyway, from the top. Okay. So I'm not going to try to say that, but yeah. The Homunculus lost on the range, so he has Ward 2. Better than nothing, okay guys? Don't get mad about Ward. For 1 and 2 blue, you may look at the top card of your library at any time. First of all, amazing. Secondly, it has Plot. Alright, so you can cast that card from your top of your deck by paying its mana cost, and it is exiled, and then you can cast it later as a sorcery. So yeah. Basically, yeah. You can do that anytime you want. So yeah. Okay, yeah. Land cards you do not get to use with this, unfortunately. The Reality Chip does let you use any spell or land. So yeah, the Reality Chip is better, at least for that. And finally, the Belligerent. This does not let you play off the top of your deck. This does let you play off the top of your deck. And it also creates, you need to attack with it, is the tricky bit. So yeah. It also creates a treasure token. Right, yeah, it does let you play lands and cast spells from the top of your deck. To the bottom. Okay, so again, we have Hoverstone Pilgrim here. For 2, you can take something from your graveyard and put it to the bottom. All of these cards allow you to put something from your graveyard to the bottom of your deck, which is going to go into your hand, right? I would try to not have all of these out at once is maybe the main thing. I would not want to maybe 2 of them, right? Depending on how many things you want out of your graveyard and how much card draw you think you can manage that turn. Rito's Lantern. Nice thing is that it is an artifact, not a creature. For 3, you can put a card on the bottom. Anyway, Transplant Theorist. Once again, artifact creature. For 2, again, you can do that graveyard to bottom of the deck trick. Tome Trawler. For 2 only it does this. And then this one finally, Junk Troller. Just tap it. No mana cost whatsoever. You're just tapping it and putting something on the bottom of your deck. Remember, these are abilities, so you can trigger them anytime. During someone else's turn, right before your turn, take something, put it on the bottom of your deck, start your turn, draw that card, right? Everyone's gonna know what you have, but it's kind of too late already, right? Anywho. Bottom, no graveyard. Okay, so this is like skipping your graveyard and going straight back to the bottom of your deck, which is straight back to your hand. Anyway, Time Stream Navigator we already talked about. Spell Crumple. This is counterspell that will keep going to the bottom of your deck, and then you keep drawing it. So it's kind of like reusable counterspell that will just keep like going in a circle back to your hand. Crazy useful. Finally, I put Maestro's Theater in here. Obviously, this does go to your graveyard, but one of the major things it does is that it shuffles, right? You want to make sure if you have something that's shuffling your deck, you do not have like Time Stream Navigator or Spell Crumple on the bottom of your deck at the time, because then you're losing it. If you know what's on the bottom of your deck and you want it, don't shuffle. Don't do anything that's going to make you shuffle. You should be using that shuffle when you've got your Spell Crumple in your hand, after you've drawn it, then shuffle, or after, make sure you're not messing up your own setup with your, shuffling, okay? That's a very important part of this deck. Free stuff or almost. Arcane Bombardment. So whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard, then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of copies without paying their mana cost. So this is going to start, again, it's confusing because it's going to cast the copies. It does have the cast, so things like 2 damage for casting an instant or sorcery, it is casting. It is a copy. Usually it says just copy. This is casting a copy. I just wish they used copy as a verb or didn't use it, but anyway. They just mean that it's not going back to your graveyard, I think. Anyway, you're going to keep doing that and triggering those abilities just over and over and over. Especially once it's got a few on it, it's going to auto-cast. Things with like River Tam's or... God... I'm still... River Song. Not River Tam. River Song. Not Firefly. Okay. River Song's Diary? It's going to auto-cast at the start of your turn, which will trigger this, which will trigger a whole bunch of more casting. So if you've got something where you're doing 2 damage to every time you cast an instant or sorcery, that's going to do 1, and then however many turns this has been around. You, again, getting that like 6 or higher per opponent, very easy with this anyway. River Song's Diary, what I was just talking about there. Remember, it will exile only instants or sorceries cast from their hand. So you have effects like this. Sorry, I did not mean it to be that. I was thinking of Wand of Wonder. Wand of Wonder does not cast from exile. It does not cast from the hand. So anything you activate with Wand or cast with Wand of Wonder will not go into exile with River Tam's Diary. Oh my god. River Song's Diary. How many times have I said River Tam now? At least 3 or 4, I think. Okay, Plarg and Nasari. At the beginning of each upkeep, each player exiles cards from this Each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So this is just going to give you a whole bunch of free casting of spells, right? Unfortunately, it does not specify instant or sorcery, but you can get a lot of value. Again, this is like stealing, basically, which is always fun. Chaos Wand. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Once again, you are paying for this, but it is using other people's instant sorceries, and it's guaranteeing you get those instant and sorcery casting triggers. That's what's really important, is that you're stealing things from your opponents, which is good, and you're guaranteeing those triggers go off, which is really important in this deck. And Mystics of the Imaginist, which we've already talked about a couple times, but yeah. That spell cost reduction is going to come in huge in this deck. So this has been River Song, the backwards deck. I hope you enjoy it. If anyone gets to play this, please let me know. I'm in Korea. I can't really get these decks that I keep making. I really want to, but I think I'm going to North America in August. I'll have to bring some lists with me, I think. Anyway, take it easy.